Well, first of all, Paul, thank you very much for that introduction, and Joe and Eloise, thank you for hosting this at your home, and Rob, thank you for helping to pull it together. So I do need to make one correction now. I wasn't born in Gate City, although I was born near Gate City, so maybe that's close enough. I was actually born in Johnson City, which is just over the line in East Tennessee, one of the Tri-Cities, Bristol, Kingsport, Johnson City. But I was raised up here in Loudoun County, and you mentioned being recruited by Mary Margaret Whipple to run for the Senate, and I'll tell you a real quick story about that. When I came in, we had a little drawing, and the number was 17, and that immediately clicked in my mind. I think Mary Margaret still refers to me as number 17, and I didn't know that until after I was elected. It was a special election in January of '06. We had a 4-week campaign, and then like the next day, you're down in Richmond. And sparing no expense, the Senate Democratic Caucus hosted an ice water and cracker reception. But Mary Margaret told me a story, and then she referred to me as number 17, because at the time the Senate was 24-16 Republicans in the majority. And so she said that she and Dick had really looked at all the districts around the state, and they felt really confident that we could pick up 4 seats in what was then the upcoming 2007 election, but that only got to 20. And they just could not figure out, so where were they going to get the next one? And then there was a vacancy in the 33rd Senate District, and my predecessor was a Republican. And so then when I won that, they were like, that's it. We've got number 17 and we can pick up 4, and we actually did in the next election pick up 4 seats and came in the majority. So she still refers to me as number 17, and she's been a great friend and supporter ever since. And I want to thank all of you for coming, and I know it sounds kind of strange that it's May 31st, and I'm here to tell you it's crunch time because we've got an election coming up, but it's crunch time and we have an election coming up. Paul did a great job at introducing me, so I'll just say a couple things about my background, then I'll talk a little bit about why I'm running, and then wrap it up with where the campaign is and how you can help. I grew up after being born in Johnson City. A few years later, our family moved to Loudoun County when I was 12, and have lived in Loudoun ever since. After high school at Loudoun Valley in Purcellville, my first job out of high school was working construction as a laborer. So working construction and restaurants and some Pell Grants and student loans, made it through UVA, undergrad, went to Richmond Law, and I loved growing up in Northern Virginia. And I had a lot of opportunities after law school, but the best one was to go back to my hometown in Leesburg, raise my family there, and establish my law practice there, and that was 23 years ago. My wife Laura and I have 2 children. Our daughter is a 3rd-year student now at UVA. Our son is a senior at Loudoun County High. And I've had a general civil law practice for 23 years. And you've heard a little bit about my service as a county supervisor. After the election in '06, when I went to the Senate, I worked on a lot of issues that were important to Northern Virginians, like education and transportation, but also in the public services, public safety area, things like getting dangerous designer drugs out of the hands of kids and off the shelves of convenience stores, drugs like bath salts and spice. We got a new law passed to protect seniors and vulnerable adults from financial fraud and other types of scams. And I've worked to strengthen laws against sexual and domestic violence. And then when the Republicans engineered their takeover of the Senate back in 2012, they rolled out their extreme social agenda. I fought against that. I fought against their attack on women's rights, their attack on LGBT rights, their attack on voting rights. And so while I was fighting those efforts, at the same time I was working to advance a progressive agenda, like implementing the Affordable Care Act here in Virginia. And I carried legislation to establish a partnership between Virginia and the federal government in creating a health insurance exchange that would work for us as Virginians. And I co-sponsored legislation to expand Medicaid coverage that will bring health care to hundreds of thousands of Virginians who currently can't afford it, and bring billions of tax dollars back to Virginia. And as I think about it, if there's maybe one thing we could thank Ken Cuccinelli for. It might be that now everybody knows just how important the Attorney General's office is. Because we have seen time and time again how he has bent and twisted the law to impose policies on Virginians that are way outside the mainstream. And Virginia deserves better than that. And I'm sick and tired of that office being abused the way it has been. I'm running for Attorney General to take that kind of politics and ideology out of the office and put the law first. In doing that, you need to know that I will continue as Attorney General to fight extreme legislators in Richmond who want to restrict women's access to contraception and punish women for making their own health care decisions. I'm pro-choice, and I'll always stand up and defend a woman's right to choose. I will work to fully implement the Affordable Care Act here in Virginia and protect people's voting rights and make sure the office is working for all Virginians. And the stakes really could not be higher. We've seen the ticket now that the Republicans have put forward. We knew Ken Cuccinelli was going to be their nominee for governor, but now we've seen their nominees for lieutenant governor and attorney general. And let me tell you, they are all far, far to the right. Mark Obenshain not only was the Tea Party endorsed candidate, but he was out touting his endorsement from the Citizens Defense League, and that's the group that thinks the NRA is soft on guns. He sponsored legislation that allowed guns in bars. He opposes closing the gun show loophole, opposes universal background checks. In terms of women's rights, he would roll the clock back more than 50 years. He sponsored the personhood legislation. He sponsored legislation that would require women to report miscarriages within 24 hours to the police. And look, I think we all know that is not where Virginians' hearts are. And we cannot afford to let the office be abused the way it has been for another 4 years. And so that's why I'm here to ask for your help. Obviously, I'm asking for your vote in the Democratic primary on June 11th. But like I said, it's also crunch time, and I really need your help. We've got volunteer phone banking, canvassing, particularly in areas where the density makes good sense to do some canvassing, like Arlington, Alexandria, places like that. And if you're in a position to be able to help out or make phone calls, we really need your help. And I am convinced that with your hard work, your energy, not only are we going to make sure that Terry McAuliffe is our next governor, that we'll have a Democrat who is a lieutenant governor so we can start breaking ties our way, but for the first time in 24 years we'll also have a Democrat as Attorney General. So thank you very much for coming.